Richard Cabeza from Dismember, and you're watching RichardMetalFan. Not me, Richard, that Richard.
Hey, what's up, guys? Episode 271 of Richard Metal Fan interviews, calling from Zoom, and I'm here with a fellow Richard Cabeza from the almighty Dismember. So how are you doing today, Richard?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Not too bad, not too bad. It is about 8 in the morning here. Just had a little breakfast, and I'm ready to do an interview.
There you go. Yeah, I know it was a little bit early. That's why I'm like, is he sure about the time? It's like 8 a.m. for him, but all right, I'm all good.
Yeah, I have nothing else going on today, so let's get rolling. And
Let's do
so
it.
anytime. So kind of the format of the show is I want to talk about like your musical history and sort of do a rundown of your discography, but take me back to young Richard Cabeza. So kind of growing up, what were the first bands that got you into metal and what made you want to slap at a bass?
Well, my first introduction to music was probably punk when I was a really young boy. I have an older brother who was a punk rocker back in the late 70s, early 80s. So I thought he looked really cool and his friends looked really cool with the studs and all the clothes and the hair and shit. So I always said, hey, when I grow up, I want to be a punk rocker. I was probably about what, 4 or 5 years old. But probably when I would say I was probably around 6 or so, I was introduced to some metal music. Iron Maiden and Judas Priest and Kiss was the first bands that I was introduced to, and that really got me interested in that, and not so much punk anymore. That was my main focus, yes, metal, And I mean, like I said, I was like 6. You're a fucking kid, man. But
Nice.
and then from there on, But those three bands were like my real introduction to metal, and obviously I kept on Priest and Maiden for sure, and Kiss till at least to the early 80s.
Yeah. And then I was like doing my research on Metal Archives. I was think your first band was called General Surgery. Tell me about that because I'm digging deep. Like I don't think nobody ever talks about that General Surgery.
No, no. My first band was actually Unanimated. That was my first band. I started Unanimated when I was about 13 or 14 back in 88, 89, something like that. And obviously I've been involved with quite a few bands in the Stockholm scene. But as you mentioned, General Surgery, I think that was probably about 1990. It's quite a while ago. But
Yeah.
my it's funny when I'm out traveling and stuff, I run into people and people hit me up on social media like, oh, General Surgery. I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, I was only on the first General Surgery demo, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I was.
Erosive
That's my.
Opals.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, and it was a total Carcass tribute rip off. We did everything we could to sound as much as Carcass, Recap Putrefaction. But like I said, I was
That's
all
some sick
involved with
shit,
that.
man.
Yeah, it sure is. It was the shits back then, man. Love that shit back then. I was totally into that. We all were, of course, but like we all were. But they done so much since that. I really don't consider me doing a lot of work for General Surgery. I did vocals for them, like I said on that first demo. That was about it. Me and Matty was doing vocals.
Yeah, and I was like, look, like doing my research with that and Unanimated. I was like, damn, I had no idea you had some sick vocals because I always thought you were just a bass player.
Yeah, no, I actually started out as a vocalist. I was doing bass too for Unanimated. And that's how I got, how I picked up the bass. And to go back to my older brother, he's a bass player too, so it kind of made sense for me.
That's great, man. But tell me about like that first demo from Unanimated Firestorm. I thought it was like really just 5 songs, just like from the call to all the way to the force of the Dreaming Dead. It's just fucking great.
Yeah, actually, we did a rehearsal demo before that, but it's it kind of sounds a little bit different than what became of Unanimated. we had a rehearsal demo back in early 1990, I think. But we all think that Firestorm was our first real demo. That was kind of, you know, when we felt comfortable in what we were doing. And yeah, good times.
Yeah.
It was some good songs, man. They still hold up today, I think, you know. The sound of the tape might not be that great, but as far as, you know, the songs, I think they hold up pretty good still. And for being, we were quite young back then.
Yeah. But it was around that same time, 1991, you actually joined up with a Dismember. So how'd you get to know the guys and how'd you end up joining the band?
Well, when Dismember got back together again, after the Carnage album there, whoopsie, my battery is running low here. I'm well prepared.
Yeah, you're all good, man. You're all good.
No, when Dismember got back after they did that Carnage thing, obviously I've been a good friend with Matty for a long time, you know, before neither of us was doing music. And Dismember wanted to come back because Dismember was a 3-piece to begin with, but now they want to, you know, get a stronger band together, a stronger lineup. So he asked me to join the band. I think that was like early 1990, like spring, summertime of 1990. I joined Dismember.
Yeah. 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 And it was, yeah, it was great. Yeah. Yeah. And then I think you also at that same time, you also did Carbonized at the time.
Yeah, that's right. I was actually doing vocals for Carbonized at that time. Jesus Christ, I'm glad you're reminding me about all this. Yeah, that's what I was doing at that time. Yeah, I was doing Unanimated, and I was doing vocals for Carbonized.
Yeah. Is there like any like releases like online with you on vocals? I tried to look it up. I couldn't find anything.
No, I never did any studio recordings with Carbonized. We did some rehearsal recordings with my vocals on, but that was about it. But I left the band quite. My stint with Carbonized, I would say, wasn't too long. As soon as Matty asked me to join Dismember, I left Carbonized and just to focus on Dismember.
Yeah. Yeah, but then tell me about making like the first record, like an Everflowing Stream. I thought this was a great debut album. So what was sort of like the thought process going into making the debut full-length Dismember album?
I would say we didn't really have a thought process, you know. We were just a bunch of metalheads that fucking having a good time, totally devoted to death metal, and wanted to make some good music and do shows, have a good time. And then we got the deal with Nuclear Blast, and just trying to make some good music, make some good songs. And we hit the studio. It took 12 days to record that album from start to finish, you know, and pretty decent result, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing I thought was interesting because I've had Fred on here not too long ago, going apparently you had that song Skinner Alive live, which you made headlining news in the UK. Well, I think like authorities were inspecting like nuclear blast packages for like obscene material for under the newly passed Obscene Publishing Acts. And I heard this was taken to court, and Plastic Head, the company responsible for distributing their CDs, won the court case and was awarded money where the Dismember record was deemed neither pornographic, obscene, or indecent.
That is correct. That is correct. Again, you know, we were so young, we didn't really understood the big picture of all this, what was going on, you know. When that all went down with the customs and this lawsuit came up about, I mean, we were on MTV every fucking hour. I mean, there was great publicity for us, for the band, you know.
Hey, any publicity is good publicity.
Right, like they say, you know. But I mean, but back then, every hour for a full week, we were on the MTV, and just got great media because this was much bigger than what we understood, you know. And what I think also is this was probably, if things would have gone the other way, who knows what music censorship would have became after that, you know?
Yeah.
That would probably involve hundreds and thousands of fucking artists moving on from that point, and it would probably change the course of how music was censored. But we had to go to the UK and go to trial, you know, where the judges and everybody, you know, they were dressed up with those little cotton wigs and whatnot, you know. We did not believe what was going on. They listened to our whole album in court, and yeah, but yeah, they deemed us being indecent and obscene, and we thought that was a good title for our second album then, because
Yeah,
we were in the process.
which we'll
Yeah,
get
we were in
there.
the, yeah, we were in the process of. We had just released pieces before that, and we were just in the process of writing material for our second full length. And
This CP right here.
yeah, there you go. So yeah, crazy times. Yeah.
Yeah. But right around the time of like an ever flowing stream and of course pieces, like what was like the touring cycle like? Did you like all tour like outside of Sweden for the first time? So what was it like touring outside of like your own outside of your own country for the first time?
It was great, you know. It was like a dream come true, you know. We were still kind of young. Neither of us have even turned 20, you know. I think maybe we were like 17, 18 years old when we started to tour Europe, you know. We were about 19, 20 when we did our first US tour.
Wow.
And yeah, we were young, and we had the time of our lives, you know. Go out there, living our dream, playing our music, and just fucking tearing it up everywhere we went, you know. They let us loose, a bunch of fucking young teenagers, fucking, you know, what can I say? You know, fucking sex, drugs, and rock and roll when you're 17, you know. You just get everything for free. You're like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is going
Can't
on?
complain
And all you
about
gotta
free
do is
shit, man. Can't complain about
yeah,
that.
fucking, you know.
Yeah.
It was great, man. Just fucking being out there and just do what you really wanted to do, you know. And again, you know, we were so young, and probably our parents and shit probably did not agree, because I mean, we dropped everything. This was our life, you know, our fucking dreams. We could go out and fucking tour Europe. Our first tour was with Sadist and Morbid Angel. We did some
Hell of
early
a
tours.
bill.
Yeah. And we did a tour with Benediction. These were like first tours back in 91 when we started doing shows outside of Scandinavia. We did shows in Scandinavia, like Sweden, Denmark, Finland. We stopped playing, you know, before the album was out. But as soon as Like an Flowing Stream was released, you know, that's when we started hitting Europe, and we just went out there and tore it up.
Yeah. Yeah, but you mentioned like around that time you toured the US for the first time. So what was that like playing in America back then? Were you like nervous at all like touring like in new countries for the first time? Like wondering like how the fans reception would be?
No, we were never nervous, because we just wanted to go out there and do our thing and show people how good we were, you know, with all the bands. We just went out there and did our thing. I mean, we were not nervous. We couldn't care less, man. We
Yeah.
just went out there and fucking being Dismember, you know, fucking giving the world a dose of Swedish death metal.
Yeah. Yeah. What was like the first like state you played in America? Okay, do you ever remember like that first US show?
I think we started touring cycle started in Florida. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was like in Tampa, I think. So that was like, wow, cool. We're in Tampa.
Yeah.
That's the second capital of death metal in the world. You know, we got
Right.
Tampa and we got Stockholm, you know.
Yeah.
So,
The best of both worlds.
yeah, no, I believe it was Tampa, you know. There was a lot of the bands from there came out to hang
Like
out. To have
Obituary, Deicide, Morbid Angel and shit.
yeah, you know, and you know, that was pretty cool for us, you know, because you know, we were fans. We still are. We're fans of this genre, you know. We were fans of all these bands. We just had to fucking, we were living it, man. It was great, you know, but we weren't nervous. We wanted to do our thing and fucking hold banner high, you know, show what Sweden and Stockholm is about.
Yeah. And back then, did you ever play like because I'm from Georgia, I live like north of Atlanta. Did you ever play like the Masquerade back in the day?
Oh yeah, I did a couple of shows at the Masquerade. in
Yeah.
Atlanta, right? Yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah, because you
Yeah.
remember at like because they had moved back in 2016 to a different spot, but at the old spot, you
Uh,
remember how how like bands like loading their gear and stuff, they would always have like an elevate like a little elevator thing that would come down on a rope, and then people would load their shit, and then it would just like ride up to like the heaven stage.
Yeah, yeah, that's yeah. When you say that, I do remember because like I start picturing the venue, and I remember going out there backstage. There was like a door because there was these fucking stairs down, and we went out there fucking smoked joints and cigarettes and drank beer and shit. And especially that first tour, like I said, we were. I think Fred was the only one who actually he might have been 21. So I mean, we're not even of legal age to drink fucking beers in the U.S. And
Yeah.
sometimes, we had beers in our dressing room. The promoter were like, "Do you guys have fucking ID?" And our tour mates, but no, they're good. They're from Sweden. Don't worry about it. They're all cool. But some venues were not that cool.
Yeah.
But that was fucking great. It was great coming to the States and play because so many bands that we were influenced by and was into was obviously American bands. So get an opportunity to hook up with and meet with all of those bands and fucking play the US. That's a dream come true. What can you say? You're a fucking 19-year-old kid, get to tour the United States.
Yeah, I wish I would have been alive back then to see you all back then. Why couldn't I have been born like 15 or years older or something?
Things were different back then, man. It was the scene was very different for sure. It's good
Yeah.
times, man. Those days are are gone, but the memories remains.
Hell yeah. Thank you. Good. Thank you too for that. It's like a time capsule. So watching like old live videos of y'all back in the day.
Yeah, yeah, we do too sometimes and break up.
Oh, yeah. And then next album I want to talk about, Indecent and Obscene. I love this album. So how did you feel about like following up like an ever-flowing stream? Did you feel like pressure at all?
I don't think we felt the pressure yet. I mean, it came down the road. I'm not. It sure did, but not at that point. We were. I mean, we got a lot of success and sold a lot of albums of like an long stream, and really quick. Dismember went from nothing to a household name. Pretty much in the scene, and obviously we want to live up to the expectations, but we also had expectation ourselves, and again, we just want we're having a good time and we want to make good music, for us, first and foremost for ourselves, good aggressive death metal the way we liked it. And we just kept plowing along, man. We lived in the rehearsal rooms back in those days. I would say up to fucking 1996, we lived in the rehearsal room. We were in the rehearsal room or we were on the doing shows. We were just playing death metal, man. It was great.
Yeah, but I love this song like Fleshless, Skin Father, like Reborn and Blasphemy. These are some fucking metal song titles, man.
Yeah, yeah. And but of course, like the title Indecent Obscene, that we thought that was fitting from being, to go back to what you say about that whole lawsuit and the trial in the UK from Skinner Alive. And I think there's a song called Eviscerated Bitch also. We did have a little bit fun of that because we have Skinner Alive on the first album, and it was our picture disc Skinner Alive that caught the attention of the customs in the UK. They're like, "Whoa, what the fuck is this?" And so we decided to make a song called Eviscerated Bitch. And how about that?
That's great, man.
Come
Yeah,
get some.
yeah. Then next up, Massive Killing Capacity. I like this album. So what was it like, kind of like going from this to this?
That's when the pressure starts coming, I think, because then I think death metal had become something much more bigger than what it was before. I think now we're 1995 that was released, and like
That was only one.
yay. But 1994, that's when death metal became, I would say, a little bit bigger. I know some of the Eric bands signed on to Columbia in the US, which was like, holy shit. It almost, became, major label bands. It was not that underground thing anymore, and you're starting to sell more and more units of your albums, and of course then same thing like now, you know, when people smell money, you know, they want more of it, you know. And you know, there was pressure from the record company back then, like, hey guys, maybe you need to slow down a little bit, and you know, and if you, yeah, it's a great album, you know, I dig it, you know. If we would have done it, you know, over again, maybe the sound would have been a little bit different, and stuff like that. But I mean, you can hear it. We definitely experimented with a little bit of more heavier song, a little bit more groovier song. Not because of the pressure, but that's just that era, man.
Yeah.
You know, we asked, like, hey, let's try not to fucking just go 1,000 miles per hour all the fucking time, you know. Let's see if we can still keep this melody and get a little bit more heavier, groovier stuff. But I mean, the guitar sound, I'm not too fan of today. It's, you know, we tuned up our guitar a little bit more. So, you know, that's Thomas Skogsberg actually produced that album. That's the first time we had a producer telling us what to do or not to do, or interfering, somebody that, not just the five of us making a decision, you know. He was part of sort of arranging the songs and like, no, cut that part out, go straight into the verse and do the chorus double, shit like that, you know, that you're not very familiar with, you know. Just became a little bit more serious, I would think, you know.
Yeah. And you know, next year will mark the 30-year anniversary of this album. Is there any chance we could get a celebration somehow? Maybe throw in some like deep cuts that haven't been played live?
Maybe. I haven't thought of that. That's it's funny you bring that up. I'm gonna bring that up to the boys and like, hey, 30 years. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was also that same year, 95, you also did I guess the first full length with the unanimated Ancient God of Evil. Tell me about like that. What was it? What was sort of like the thought
Second
process
full length.
making? Oh, second full length. So what was that whole like writing like, because like for that album?
To just go back real quick, the first animated album came out in 1993. By that time, I had left the band. I think I left the band in 92 because I wanted to put 100% focus on Dismember. There was so much going on with Dismember. We were out touring, doing shows, just rehearsing all the time. And I felt like I wanted to just give all my attention to Dismember at the time. So I did not play on that album. I was still in touch with them, and you know, a lot of my lyrics and riffs and stuff is still on the album. And I didn't join the band Unanimated again back until maybe 6 months before the album, you know, because they didn't have their bass player that time, I guess, left the band or whatnot. So it was just we were still friends, you know, so it was just natural for me to because I had already starting writing lyrics for Asian God of Evil album, even though I wasn't in the band. They asked me to write lyrics and stuff, so it was just natural for me to just pick up the bass and join the band, you know, at that time, you know. And then they already had another vocalist, so I could just play the bass.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
But
I noticed you were saying.
yeah, I mean, it didn't really interfere too much with Dismember at that time, you know. Things were different in Dismember then, you know. I had more time.
Yeah. And then I noticed like some little anecdote I want to point out is like on the album list you were like credited as Richard Damon. And so how did that, was that sort of like a nickname? How did that come to be?
I don't know, just a name that I picked up when I was, you know, in the early teens, you know. And then you at the first Dismember album, I think it was still Richard Diamond. And yeah, I don't know, just a fucking artist name.
Yeah.
Sounds
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. And then kind of going back to Dismember, going into 1997, you dropped Death Metal. I love this album, like the title, just a very bold statement. So what was the thought? Tell me about making this album.
Like I said, after Massive Killing Capacity, you know, the album did well and everything, but we were just not, on the personal level, we were not happy with, you know, like, fuck, man, what did we do? You know, we kind of, I mean, we were still pleased with Massive Killing Capacity, but I don't think all five of us was 100% pleased with everything. You know, I think we gave in a little tad somewhere along to some outside voices or whatnot, and we're like, fuck man, fuck this shit, you know, we're death metal, man. That's what we are about. And great, my cats are fighting here. That's what we're about. And in 1997, you know, then death metal wasn't too salty, wasn't too popular anymore. There was a lot of other genres coming up, black metal and all that shit. And we're like, you know what? Fuck, man, we're death metal, you know. So we wanted to do what we want to do. We're metal. We're fucking metal to the bone.
Yeah.
That's what we're about. And you know, that's what we live and fucking eat metal. And that's what we want to do. And we thought death metal would a fitting title, you know, to what we were about. And we we got back to what we really wanted to do, you know, just do fucking play death metal, Stockholm style.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's a great way to think because sometimes you got to be like, fuck the haters and fuck what anybody says. We're just gonna stick to our guns and just do what we do.
Yeah, and especially like I said, you know, death metal wasn't too cool back then. Since I think black metal has kind of like starting to weigh over a little bit, and you know, a lot of bands were changing their style, trying to do this and that, and we're like, fuck off, you know, like we're all about death metal, you know.
Yeah. And I also love the song Let the Napalm Rain, which also has like samples from the movie Apocalypse Now. Like I thought, like, tell me about like that. Were you all like fans of that film back in the day?
Of course. It's a great movie, you know. We're all like those kind of war movies, you know.
Yeah. And then I noticed you also had Chris Reifert, of course, from Autopsy to provide backing vocals, but could not due to a variety of circumstances.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I don't remember what, but you know, we wanted to involve him somehow, you know. Autopsy I mean, it's one of our favorite bands and one of our biggest influences back then, you know. When we starting up, you know, Autopsy as in general has probably been one of the top three influencers of Stockholm death metal, you know. Without Autopsy, Stockholm death metal wouldn't sound the way it sounds, you know. I think that's fair to say, you know, and especially from my own point of view. And for Dismember, you know, Autopsy are fucking gods, man.
Oh yeah.
That's what we listen to, you know, when we grew
Yeah.
up. The fucking Autopsy, almost, you know, especially the second demo, Critical Madness, you know, that has a massive input musically on me and the band, you know.
Yeah, and they were great because
we got to work with Chris later on, and so
yeah, and I think he's great. Like I don't know how the hell he like sings and plays drums at the same time. He's just a beast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I remember seeing him like about 2 years ago at Maryland Death Fest, and and I was like, damn, that was awesome.
Yeah, he's a beast, man. I'm happy and I feel fortunate to be able to have the opportunity to work with him, be in a rehearsal room, be in a studio with him, and see how he works, how he plays guitar, how he plays drums, doing his vocals and stuff. And it cleared up a lot of things for me, you know, from a musical aspect, you know, because a lot of Autopsy stuff didn't make sense in a music theory sense, you know, like how things were. But seeing him in action, you know, then you're like, now I understand.
Yeah. Yeah, and then kind of jumping ahead to 2001, you joined up with you did Murder Squad's I guess their first album, Unsane, Insane, and Mentally Deranged. Say that 3 times fast. So tell me about like making that.
Yeah, well, Dismember and Entombed shared rehearsal space for fuck know how long, many years. Let's just leave it at that. And we were just hanging out in the rooms, you know, in between tours and show, you know, not fucking much going on. You're out drinking, partying and shit. And we just hanging out a lot in the rehearsal room, getting high and jamming. And we started playing a lot of Autopsy covers. Whoopsie.
Yeah.
And then we decided to start write some own material that sounds like Autopsy. That's my cat coming and say hello. And that's
Hello,
how the
cat.
first, yeah, I got two cats here. So anyway, that's how the first, that's how Murder Squad came about, you know, just again, it's like General Surgery. It's just a pure Autopsy tribute, you know, try to sound, let's make some songs, but let's try to make it sound like Autopsy as much as we can, you know, in our way, you know.
Yeah, and it definitely has that Autopsy kind of sound to it. While it's not like blatantly like ripping it off, it definitely has that sort of, I guess, feel behind it, you know?
That's what we were going for, man. We were fucking just getting high and just loving Autopsy and having a good time.
Oh yeah. And then I know, then of course the next album, Ravenous Murderous, I love that album, and hard to believe it's been over 20 years since that album came out. So tell me about that.
Yeah, it was time for the second album. We were start writing some new tracks, and you know, and we thought that, hey, let's do another album, and like, yeah, and then like, hey, let's fucking bring Chris Reifert over, you know. Wouldn't that be, how fucking awesome would that be to involve him? And you know, so we hooked up with him and like, hey, would you want to be part of this? You know, do you want to write some lyrics? Do you want to come over to Sweden, record with us? And do you want to write the song, or you know, do you want to contribute? You know, it would be a huge honor for us, you know. And he was down with that. So we flew him over to Stockholm, and we had a very intense week, you know. We went down in the rehearsal room and wrote some good songs, had some fun, and went in the studio and banged that shit out.
Oh yeah, just get right to the
Yeah,
point.
that was just a fucking experience, man, by itself. You know, just
Yeah.
being, you know, getting to that stage, and then just being in the studio, the five of us. You know, that's there's some good memories, some good stories from that time. That's for sure.
Nice. And then
I
I
feel
know
very honored to been able to play with him. You know, and that's huge. You know, again, Autopsy are gods in my book. You know, when it comes to death metal. You know.
yeah. And then I kind of backtracking a little bit because I know like the same time that first Murder Squad album came out in 2001, he also did the Born of Fire EP, Chosen by the Gods. Just only two songs, like the title track and The Art of Dying. Tell me about like that little project.
Damn, you're well read, aren't you?
Indeed, Richard. I'm trying.
Yeah. Tapu. Again, just some project, you know, friends were hanging out, and a good friend of mine, Frederick, had some songs and wanted me to, asked if I could do bass for it, and you know, it was me, him, and Pete, and another guy who did guitars and did the vocals, and nothing more came out of it, really, you know. But I think a little bit more. I haven't heard those songs since we probably recorded them, but I think a little bit more trashy, trash metal stuff, I guess. Maybe, I don't know. I can't fucking remember.
It's good, man.
Shit.
Yeah, but then going to 2004, like 20 years ago, like you released your last album with the Dismember, where Iron Crosses Grow. I'd love this album. I think, in my opinion, it's a very underrated album. So what was the thought process recording this album?
Um, it's a great album, man. It's great songs. It just came out in the wrong era, you know. If that album would came out today, or if it came out in '94 instead of 2004, I think it probably would have had been talked to a lot more, you know. But at that time, uh, I mean, I left Dismember back in 1998, I think, for a while, and joined the band back together after they did what? We did a hate campaign, I think, with Charlie
You
D'Angelo
are
on bass.
correct.
Yeah, I went up to Norway for a little stint and dipped my feet up in the black metal scene up there for a while, and then I came back and joined Dismember. Obviously, it just made sense. I was asked if I could. They got some shows coming up, and Matty asked me if I can if I can join them for a couple shows, since I already know the songs, and it just made sense for me to continue playing, you know. And we wanted to do another album, and we really wanted to make a really good death metal album, you know. Again, even if like I mentioned earlier, in 97, you know, death metal wasn't too popular. Hey, fucking 2004, even less, you know. And again, you know, we wanted to make a statement that we're a death metal band, man. That's all what we're about. And we got metal in our bones and metal flowing in our blood, and trying to just make really good songs, you know, death metal songs.
Yeah. Yeah, but then it was like I know, like I mentioned like before, this year does also mark 20 years of Where Iron Crosses Grow. So is there a chance we can get a celebration of this somehow?
I'll be honest to you, I don't think anybody in the band even thought of that, but you're absolutely right. It's fucking 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I was only in fourth grade when this album came out, but I wasn't even in the metal yet.
That's crazy. I probably wouldn't know thought of it. That's been 20 years ago until I probably see something online on social media like, oh, 20-year anniversary. You're like, oh shit, that's right. But at that point, we were only a 4-piece band too. It was only me, Fred, David, and Matty recorded that album.
Yeah.
But I left the band again then.
Yeah. And
Because I'm
how hard was it to leave?
uh, it wasn't hard at that time. I mean, I don't know what to say. I left. I had other shit I needed to do. I moved to the United States, so it was hard for me to stay in Dismember.
Yeah, because I believe because I had interviewed Fred and he said that you would like moved to like Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, I moved back in 2002, 2003, I think. I moved to Dallas, Texas, and I just moved back to Europe last year. So I've been in
Yeah.
Dallas for over 20 years.
Yeah, and I guess you're in Belgium now?
That is correct. I'm in
Yeah.
Belgium right now.
Yeah, so what made you decide to like live in Belgium? What was there something to be like, I want to live here?
No, it wasn't that easy. No, my wife she's from Belgium.
So it's just a simple like let's go let's move to Belgium and like okay.
Pretty much, pretty much. I
Yeah.
needed, yeah.
Yeah. But then
I
during
mean,
that yeah, but then during that time after you left Dismember in 2004, kind of like jumping ahead a little bit to
uh-huh.
2009, you did Rape, Pillage and Burn with their EP Songs of Death, Songs of Hell. Tell me about
Uh-huh.
that.
Uh, it's like like leftover Dismember riff that, you know, never made it into Dismember, or stuff that I had worked on, you know. And it's a band I had with my good friends there from Dallas, Mike and Matt from Divine Eve, Dallas band Divine Eve. And yeah, we had a band together, RPB, Rape, Pillage and Burn, and I think that's all we recorded too, you know. It's a lot of beers, a lot of weed, you know. Not much can happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but I
Good
think
times.
yeah. And I think you also didn't around that same time you had a black metal band called Obscuratum.
Uh, well, uh, a friend of mine from Sweden asked if I could do bass for them, and I'm like, sure, because I wasn't, you know, I only had Ray Pillage and Burn at that time, you know, but we were just hanging out, jamming, you know, having a good time. It wasn't too focused on trying to make it or get the deal or anything like that. Just making some songs and, you know, having a good time, meet up and you know,
Yeah.
have some
And
beers and smoke some and play some music. And I never did anything with that band, but my name is still attached to that band. I don't think they ever did anything or whatnot, but I mean, I never did anything. I got some songs sent to me. That's about it.
right. And then I
That's a
know yeah. And then also 2009 you did the new at the time an animated album In the Light of Darkness. Like tell me about like making that album.
uh oof. It was a different experience, you know. We got the band back together and we want to play together again. At this, I guess the time, I have spoken about all those years in between, why an animated couldn't make things happen multiple times. I'm not gonna go back to that, but it was a difficult process, but we made it happen. You know, we were all living in different places. and but we found a way to make it work, and I'm very satisfied with the result of that album. You know, we recorded it in Necromobus in Stockholm with Ture, and I think it's a good album. You know, it's again, I think it was what 14 years in between the releases. Ancient
Yeah.
God of Evil, The Light of Darkness, and I mean, we shouldn't be ashamed of that. You know,
Yeah.
it represented us pretty well, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and I thought an interesting anecdote, like the album's subtitle is The Covenant of Death, although this isn't reflected neither on the cover or spine.
I think it's represented somewhere on the CD or something, you know, somewhere. I don't know, but yeah, you had a subtitle. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And hard to believe that this year does mark 15 years of that album. So how do you feel about the album now, 15 years later, being that it was sort of like the comeback album for Unanimated?
Like I said, you know, I'm pleased with it. You know, I'm pleased that we managed to. There was a lot of struggles with Unanimated as a band and on personal levels. You know, uh, so I'm very pleased with how that album came about and how the final result, and I did it. It's a good representation of an animated, and also think we scaled down a little bit from all this keyboard stuff that we did on Ancient God of Evil, you know, and went back a little bit to what we really wanted to do when we started a band but was not able to do, you know, be a little bit more darker and brutal and aggressive. And I think we managed to get the good blend of everything that symbolize what unanimated really is about.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I noticed like between like that, you also did like the Annihilation EP in 2018. I noticed there was like a almost a 9-year gap between In the Light of Darkness and the Annihilation EP. So was there like what was sort of like the reason between like the long like gap between releases?
Same old story, man. Just struggles, man, to get shit happen. And we lost our drummer already. Pete left the band, and we got our good friend Anders from Alice joining the band. But I don't know, man. Just struggles, and fucking time flies, man. Before we even know it, it's like, holy shit, has it been this long, you know? And we're like, hey, we gotta get going, you know? Because this time, after In Like the Darkness, we really tried to to try to function as a band, you know, trying to do shit, and clearly we're not capable of it together, you know. We're all good friends, but we might not bring out the best in one and another, so to say.
Yeah. And then the latest like release from Unanimated at the like Victory in Blood, I thought that was a great album, a very underrated album, very much one of my favorites from 2021. So tell me about making that.
um it's a really good album, I think. You know, I think we did really well on that. And it's the first album with Anders, and also a good friend Jonas joined the band on guitar. He participated in contributing with lyrics. It was nice for me not to write all the lyrics for a change, so he contributed with lyrics and music, and it was great, you know. But right when we were about to record, and this whole COVID bullshit started, so things became a little bit wacky, you know, especially for me being in Dallas, you know, that changed things about for me as far as trying to do any form of rehearsals or trying to go flying up there to record. That was just like no dice, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And did like at the time like the pandemic, because I know like the pandemic sort of like I know it kind of like fucked up the whole like music industry at all. Did that like overall sort of like sonically influence like the sound of the album in any way?
Nah, I wouldn't say that. You know, we had a good picture of what we wanted to do anyway. You know, we as far as with an animated, you know, don't get too much thought or influenced about what's going on in the around you, you know, on the outside. Well, we were pretty locked in and zoomed in on what we wanted to do and what had to be done.
Yeah. Yeah, and it has been a few years since the Unanimated has released the Victory in Blood. Have you all started working on the next album? Like, what's the status with that, if you're allowed to say?
There is no status as of today. You know, we're just putting on a hiatus for a little bit. You know, I'm quite busy with Dismember now again, and we'll see what the future brings. You know, what the future holds for Unanimated. You know, but right now, nothing's going on.
Yeah.
I'm fully focused with Dismember. You know.
Yeah, it's sort of like your main baby.
Yeah, for sure. You know, it's crazy. We've been together for a long time, and we have just as much fun today as we did back in 1990. You know.
Yeah, and it was, of course, in 2019, like Dismember did get back together. So how did you end up coming back in the band? And then what made you all decide to come back?
We were starting to talk again about getting the band together back in 2016. 2019, that's when we did our first live performance again. But it was back in 2016. Fred called me and said, like, "Hey, man, you know, I've been talking to David, you know, and they had started talking about, hey, we should do some shows together. I miss playing, man, and like we should do some Dismember shows, you know." And long story short, I think if we're gonna play, it has to be the original band. You know, we're not gonna be just, you know, 3 members and then bring in two other guys. You know, it has to be the 5 of us, the original band. You know, Fred called me and asked
OG crew,
the OG crew, the Fabulous 5. So no, Fred called me and asked if I was interested in, you know, doing some shows with Dismember again, start playing. And of course, I'm like, fuck yeah, man. It's been a long time coming. It's time, and especially, you know, with the original band, you know, then that's a no-brainer, you know, of course, you know. But it was a lot of other things why it took so long before the first live performance. You know, there's, you know, there was a lot of things to get, you know, legal things and all that bullshit that has to happen. And, you know, we start just getting Dismember back to us, you know. The 5 of us are Dismember. We owe everything that has anything to do with Dismember, you know. So it took a little bit of time, and, you know, we released the back catalog last year, I think. So that tells you about how long time all this bullshit took, you know.
yeah.
There's so many different people you had to chase down, and to get all this, you know, to just get started again, you know. So we just got focused on just doing shows together, and we're really enjoying doing it again, you know.
Yeah. And tell me about like that first show back with Dismember. Were you all like nervous at all playing the first show back after so many years?
No, not nervous, because it was so much fun, you know. When we all the 5 of us just met outside the rehearsal room for the first time again, you know, it's been a long time. It was just like that. It was just back to 1990, 91 again, you know, just laughing, having a good time playing, and it sounded great, you know. I mean, it's that stuff is in our spine, you know. You might be a little bit rusty, but it all came back really quick. I wouldn't say we were nervous, but I think the anticipation was so high from people, but also for us to play again, you know. So you were just amped up. You almost had to like take a breath, dude. You know, you're like, let's do it, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, but you've also played with so many bands, going from Dismember to fuck it, getting Unanimated, like so many like live different bands, like whether it be with session or live. Like how different of a mind frame is it depending on like the different bands that you play with? You have to like maybe adjust your playing depending on like the different bands you play with, or are you allowed to like sort of like just do your own thing with other bands that you're with?
I mean, of course, you have to adjust your playing, you know, this how you play and the style to fit in the band you're jamming with, for sure, you know. I mean, I've been doing Dismember for so long, for so many years, but for example, I'm surprised there's one band you haven't mentioned to, but I was playing with Dark Funeral for a while as well.
Yeah, I was just counting like studio stuff,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. But yeah, I only did a live album with them, but I did a couple of tours with them, and that's a good example. I obviously had to adjust my style of playing
Yeah.
quite a bit there, because how their music is is compared to, you know, Dismember or an animated, for example, very different, you know, style of how I would play, you know, for sure.
Oh
And
yeah.
so of course, you know, the style and your mindset, you know, you have to put yourself, you know, give yourself 100%. At least I do, you know, 100% to what you get involved with, for sure.
Yeah, and talking about your bass playing, because I know you've heard your fair share of bass player jokes and memes before, but I don't think you gravitate towards flashy bass playing, but instead I feel like you find ways to link what the guitars are doing with the melody and what the drums are doing with the rhythm, but in a creative sense. So with any bands that you played with, what is like your approach to like tracking the bass?
Yeah, I'm definitely not a flashy bass player, you know, never been interested in that, you know. I have more attitude than that. But I mean, I was, when I started playing with Dismember, I only played bass for a year, 2 year or something, really playing bass. So I mean, I learned to play Dismember, kind of, that's how I learned to playing bass too, you know. So if that makes any sense. Um, I like, you know, more like traditional, like rock and heavy metal. The position in the band, the bass player I have there, the heavy. I like heavy, you know. Fucking bass is just in your face, you know. Come get some, you know. I play a lot with the drums, you know, more than you know what I mean. It's a lot of that in death metal today, you know. It doesn't say shit to me, you know. Doesn't mean anything to me, you know. I'm not
And
interested in that.
you just don't bullshit. You just like just do your thing.
Yeah, I just do my thing, you know. It's the I look at the whole, you know, the end result is more important for me than to shine as an individual player, you know. Try to find ways to link up with the melodies of the guitar and the rhythm of the drums, you know, find a good balance in between there. And like I said, I like heavy, you know, I want to feel it in my chest, you know.
Yeah, and a lot of people always like to make fun of bass players. I mean, come on, Lemmy, Peter Steele, Glenn Benton. Come on,
Mhm. Yeah, right, right. And
I
people
just
in
got to
fun of,
say that.
yeah, there's a lot to be said, you know, but they always say it behind our backs, tell us in the face.
Yeah, yeah, indeed, man. But I always feel like bass is really important because without bass, it would just like I guess the sound, like overall, like sound quality would sound kind of, I guess, hollow.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you know, all the memes and everybody makes fun of it, but you know, everybody also talk about Injustice for All with Metallica, right? There's a
Yeah,
great example what happens, you know.
yeah, especially when they with Injustice for all, where they had like the bass turned down low.
Yeah, I mean, you take bass out of music, you know, it's not the same thing, you know.
Yeah, but I even know like somebody even made a fan version of Injustice for All with the bass actually turned up. They called it Injustice for Jason.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, and I'm thinking I remember even Jason Newsted actually had heard it. I think some fan like gave it to him, be like, this is how it should have been, and he was like, wow, this is awesome.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, no, yeah, of course, that album should probably sound a lot better with a little bit of bass, right? I think we all
Yeah.
can agree.
Yeah, I just listened to that on YouTube. That's like the only way to listen to it.
Yeah. That's, yeah. You find a lot of fun stuff on YouTube like
Yeah.
that, you know. But I mean, in basis, I mean, jokes aside, you know, it's very important in music, and you know, especially in this genre that we're dabbling in, you know, death metal and metal, you know. But I mean, there's no need to say nothing, you know. You need bass just as much as you need anything else, you know. You
Yeah.
take bass out of a recording, you take bass out of a live show. It's not the same thing, you know.
Yeah. Yeah,
You take
definitely. And
a
I
rhythm guitar out of a recording or rhythm guitar live thing, same thing, you know. It's important, you know.
yeah, definitely. And I remember even like watching an interview with Troy from Mastodon. And he described like the bass as like the special stuff in the sandwich. Like the guitars are sort of like the bread, and then the bass is sort of like that special stuff right in the middle.
Hey, not a bad comparison. Yeah, no, for sure, absolutely. You know, it's a very. I mean, obviously, all musicians know that, man. I mean, what can I say? You know, bass is
Yeah.
very important in music too. You know,
Yeah.
just because 4, 5, 6 strings, you know, just the guitars.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And talking about like your, I'm always curious about like your rig set because I've seen like pictures you play like Warwick basses. I'm always curious like like what's your like setup like in terms of like basses, pedals, strings, amps, and all that good stuff.
I play usually. I try. I play through Ampeg. Ampeg is my jam. You know, I like playing through Ampeg, classic 350, or SVT, or even a lot of the new stuff that they're coming out. I like to play through. We just did a show last Saturday in Italy. Played through some new smaller Ampeg thing, some rack thing, fucking sounding great. But Ampeg is what I prefer to play through. And other than that, I play through. I play through Dark Glass, Alpha Omega, and that's it. You know, before I had the Alpha Omega with Dark Glass, I had a guitar distortion pedal Rat that I played through just to rough up the sound, not really crank up the distortion, but just to through the sound through the pedal to just make this sound a little bit more dirty. But that's about it. I like to keep it simple too, but I do like a little rough up the sound a little bit, Again, I like heaviness a lot,
Yeah.
But and the past 10, 15, 20 years, I've been strictly playing Ernie Ball strings. They work fine with me, and like you said, I play Warwick basses.
Yeah. Yeah, and in terms of like playing live, because I've yet to see Dismember, but I am going to see you all finally next week at Maryland Death Fest. So in terms of like playing live, how different of a mind frame is it like playing live versus like recording? Is there any similarities or differences between the two?
They're two different things. When you're in the studio, you're in the recording, you're focused, and it's not the same thing at all. Not for me, at least. When you do a live show, when you play live, that's when the real shit is at. It's more than just playing. You give your heart and soul. When you get up there on stage and play. That's how honest you can be as a performer, as a musician, I think. And as a band. It's a completely different mindset and vibe. Same thing too, like I said before, you work, you get into, at least I get into the zone. It's the world is just disappearing, and you just go out there and just fucking let it all out. Let loose. That's sharing that energy with the audience. That's what it's all about. It's satisfying for me as a musician to play. As for being on the opposite to watching the band, it's that sharing of that energy, that feeds of each other. That I prefer playing clubs, hot, sweaty, fucking yes. Ugh. It's a drug, versus in the studio, it's all nice and clean and you're focused. And live, that's where it's at. You give yourself 110%. Just let it all flow. Just that's your soul right there.
Yeah. And speaking of like recording, because I know it's been like 16 years since Dismember had an album, and for you is 20 years since your last album. Is there any possibility we can get some new Dismember music anytime soon?
For sure, man. It's happening. When I can't tell you right now, but we have talked about writing new music. We are writing new music individually, but we haven't starting to write music together as a band. We have been so busy with playing shows the past couple of years and doing all this other stuff. But I think we're getting closer and closer. Let's see what happens next year in 2025. Maybe we actually start putting some songs together. But 100% the new Dismember album will happen.
Nice.
No doubt. But nice. Again, we have very high expectations on ourselves as a band to release a new album.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And sort of like in the end, to sort of wrap things up, what's next for Dismember? I know you got Maryland Death Fest coming up, which I am looking forward to finally seeing you all. I'm actually going to be driving up from Georgia to Maryland to finally see Dismember. It's just anything else with Dismember you'd like to promote in terms of like tours and stuff, if you're allowed to say.
Well, we got some festivals in Europe coming up this summer, and like you said, we we're 1 week out from Maryland Death Fest, and as far as US, we got Chicago, New York, San Antonio, and Oakland, California Death Fest on the agenda. You know, I am, and we are very excited to finally get back to the US. It's been a long time coming, you know.
Yeah, I'm hoping you all like do like a actual like tour. I'd love to see you all play in Atlanta. But I am looking forward to seeing you at MDF.
Right. No, we are very excited to finally hit the US stage, you know, and I can't, you know, we can't wait to fucking get on stage here in Maryland and tear that shit up, man.
Nice. So thank you, Richard, for this conversation. It's great to be able to have you on my show. It's just any final words you want to say to the viewers that are watching this to close us out?
I don't know. Fucking death metal, motherfuckers.
Great one, man. So everybody, Richard Cabeza from Dismember. We'll see you next time.